They say that words not just describe a reality, but the kind of words you use also have the ability to create a reality that you want.
So if I use a word right now, let's say accident. And for me, I tripped when I woke up this morning. I just tripped over my shoe. I had a little accident. Now we have four different meanings to this one word of the same word. So word is just used to sort of put across what is already in my mind.
Once I've identified the fact that, okay, this is a situation that I'm faced with, the emotion that I'm feeling is hopelessness, or the fact that I'm feeling that I can't do anything. Is there a way to break this belief?
Sometimes when you look at life and you're looking at what are those big things that may have happened that may have defined who I've become or who I am.
Right.
And many times it isn't in the big things. It is many times a smaller event. It is sometimes even to the conscious mind insignificant at an for the adult brain.
One of the things that we face a lot is, one of the primary emotions that is also something that causes the most harm is anger. कि गुस्सा आ गया. How do you control the anger, and how do you not let this emotion overtake you? What is stress as an emotion? Stress ko how can we deal with it?
For me, stress is a no choice situation. When I don't look at choices, I'm going to get stressed. The minute I begin to look at my options and my choices, I then start to focus on what I can do to go after what I want.
Thank you so much, Amit, for being here today. I am so excited for this conversation that we're about to have.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
What I'd love to talk about or start with is, just the concept of words. They say that words not just describe a reality, but the kind of words you use also have the ability to create a reality that you want. So I'd leave that to you as a thought, and how would you comment on that?
When we look at words and the role words play, you know, it's obvious that we any expression of what's happening inside, or okay, or let's look at it a little differently. It's for now. Let's if I look at how the brain processes information, my understanding is we take in information. We see, we hear, we feel through smell, through taste. And these are input channels. We take in all the information that's all around us, right from birth. And then we process. We have these processing, what we look at as universal processing mechanisms, such as we generalize, we delete, we distort. These are all processes that are universal to all human beings. And eventually, when all of that happens, we form what's called our map of reality. So one is your world reality, what I'm seeing now, what I'm hearing now, everything that's happening outside. After it goes through my own filters, I generalize, I delete, I distort. After it goes through all my filters, I create what's individually my own map of reality. That's my world.
So your world or your map of reality, it might be different from my map of reality.
Absolutely.
Will be different from Meet's reality,
Absolutely.
depending on our experiences, depending on what we've seen in our life.
Absolutely. How we process it,
Okay.
so how we process that. And so naturally, because we are different, and we have different experiences, we have different personal history, we have different lives that we've led. So that creates our ability to process differently. That will just generate that in the most natural way. So my map is different from your map, that's for sure. And eventually, how do I express this map? Is through words. So when you look at the power of words, the words is what we are using to sort of express our maps, to communicate our map. And here's where it gets interesting, Divya, because uh, so if I use a word right now, let's say accident, what comes to your mind?
Two cars crashing.
Two cars crashing. Okay. We have two other people in this room. They may not be on video, but let's check. Meet. When I use the word accident, what comes to your mind? Two white cars crashing on a multi-lane. Wow, I just bought a new white car this morning. I hope you're not jinxing me. Yeah. And what's your idea of this word? Car crashed into a tree. Okay. And for me, I tripped when I woke up this morning. I just tripped over my shoe. I had a little accident. Now we have four different meanings to this one word of the same word. How did this happen? Where did this come from? That's, for me, it's one aspect is we all had a different description of the word. Yet, if you look into it, okay, where is this description coming from? Where did this come from? There's something in your map, something to do with an accident. For me, there's something to do with white cars. For you, there's an accident is also a car crash. And for me also, I have a meaning of this. So word is just used to sort of put across what is already in my mind. And the reason this is also important to understand today is because sometimes we use a word and we all think we all mean the same thing. And we often don't really, check with others what their understanding of that word could be or what their map of reality may be. And that could be good in some ways and in many ways
It's
uh,
different.
it's different. So in many ways, it can also cause a lot of rift because, we, like you rightly said, different realities. Yet, if we don't question or check with each other what that word means, we go back with our own understanding of reality, and then it becomes very easy to label the other person as they don't understand and so on and so forth.
So, is this one of the basic principles that we kind of work with when we talk about NLP? Is what really does the word mean, or how do we define this, or is this word defined by experiences?
NLP is just short for neuro-linguistic programming. Linguistic is this whole element of language,
Okay.
which includes here, as far as NLP is concerned, it includes verbal and non-verbal language. Primarily, 7% of all communication is words, 93% non-verbal. There's an element of 38%, which is voice, sound, tone, all of that. And 53% is body.
Okay.
So when you look at words, even here, important to understand that many times our entire focus when we look at communication is primarily words. Yet, when we do that, are we also noticing the other 93% that is also communicating? So sometimes when you hear a thought like silence speaks louder than words, it's true. Because in that silence, there is 53% that the body communicates. In that silence, or in just a hum, or in just a little sound, there's yet another 38% of all communication. And 7%, even though important, is just one part of all communication. So the whole idea of NLP became neuro-linguistic programming, how we take in the world, how we process the world, and how that creates our own reality. And then how we express or communicate that reality in everyday living. One aspect of it is words. But there's, like I said, there's so much more happening in communication, which is what NLP is enabling us to understand and learn about.
So, just doubling down here once again, because we spoke about perception and
Mm,
we spoke about our own mental
mm,
maps that we have created.
right.
So what I'm hearing is that we have a mental map जिससे हम अपनी reality perceive कर रहे हैं, the way we are perceiving the world, where we are living, our relationships, the situation that we are in. This is something that's been created by experiences, the other life that we lived. Is it possible to change it through the use of words and NLP?
The whole idea is, to become aware. And the other definition of NLP for me, there's so many, but for me, another definition that really stands out over time is just the idea of awareness. That one word for me encapsulates what NLP is really all about. When I am aware, I have an opportunity. And that opportunity is to be able to transform or change whatever it is that I want to now change or transform. But again, it's again, the whole idea is that through NLP, there's an opportunity once again to come to that awareness, because there's so much that's unconscious, right? We're just paying attention to one aspect of what is visible, which is our conscious behavior.
Right.
But there's so much that's underneath that. There's so much that's driving that behavior. There's so much that has happened in our lives that's behind everything we say and do. And the whole idea of awareness is there's an opportunity to sort of get a sense of where some behavior could be coming from or a limitation could be coming from. And then, yeah, through applications, tools, and structures of NLP, there's an opportunity to work through that and work with that.
So, you said beliefs,
Mhm.
certain beliefs, and I think काफी time there are certain limiting beliefs जो that we have in our lives or that they have been created that hold us back. Um, you know, very often is imposter syndrome.
Mhm.
I'm not good enough. I don't really deserve it.
Mhm.
I तो deserve not to get this job. मेरे साथ तो यही होना चाहिए था. I don't really deserve the boyfriend or this or that. So I think there's this ton of limiting beliefs that a lot of us have. So I'd love to understand कि limiting beliefs आते कैसे हैं and how can we actually change them?
So, limiting belief is any belief that I have that limits me. Okay. Uh, is a belief real? Primarily, no. It's a generalization. All beliefs are generalizations that we have about the world, we have about ourselves, we have about different areas of our life. How are they formed is mostly always under the age of 7. So developmental psychology is continuously pointing out how below the age of 7, in fact, right from the time we were conceived, not just born, but right from the time we were conceived, we start to pick up experiences, and those experiences then become a lot of those experiences then translate into how I create beliefs about myself. So a lot of opinions that I have about myself, especially the ones you brought up, not good enough, I'm lazy, words you hear that I'm stupid, I'm ugly, I'm not smart, I'm not intelligent. And these are all ideas that we have. Are these ideas consciously chosen? Did I consciously choose this behavior or this idea that I'm ugly or I'm stupid? Uh, no question. You know, I like to, if I had an option, I like to believe something very differently about myself or a loved one. Yet these beliefs are formed because they're formed so early in life, at a time when we couldn't really logically uh, question it, or we didn't have the ability to really understand it. At that age, you're just picking up everything that's happening. It becomes, you just take it all in, and that becomes your reality. So that's when these beliefs are formed. So again, it's purely coming from experience. So there's some experience that happens, and as a result of that experience, I form an opinion about myself, and then that opinion that I form about myself as a belief then controls me, all my behaviors, my decisions, my attitude, my responses as I move on in life.
So I'll come back to this, right? So, and this is very interesting for me, is because experiences that you have between 0 to 7 years, a lot of us don't really remember this. Also, a lot of us have fairly, matlab, touch wood, like, I mean, of course, there'll be certain cases when there's extreme trauma, but for a lot of us, there'll be fairly happy childhoods in general. So it's not as if there's any kind of actual trauma, etc., involved. But even smaller instances can create these kind of beliefs. It could be a brother or a sister or a aunt or an uncle sort of making a comment or something, and that can also create these limiting beliefs. So it doesn't necessarily have to be a tragedy or a
No, no, and that's a beautiful point, because sometimes when you look at life and you're looking at what are those big things that may have happened that may have defined who I've become or who I am.
right,
And many times it isn't in the big things. In my
right.
experience of so many decades of working with beliefs, I've discovered it's to my surprise and to the surprise of many people I work with, it is many times a smaller event. It is sometimes even to the conscious mind insignificant at for the adult brain.
Right.
But again, what we need to understand here is that those beliefs are formed in childhood, early childhood, you know, an issue of abandonment, issue of rejection.
And this abandonment could be as simple as coming home and having the door locked because the maid wasn't there and वो 1 घंटे बाद शायद आ गई होगी, but that itself was going to the child's brain as
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
abandonment
It could
or
be that. It could be wanting to have somebody, a caretaker there, and not being able to find them, you
right.
know. And that can sometimes create a sense of, I wanted somebody there, they were not there. Does that mean the meaning sometimes could that also mean that I'm not wanted or I'm unwanted? Could it mean I'm not worth it or I'm worthless? And that state in that moment is just a very moment thing. And that general opinion that they form or we all form about ourselves in situations like that then become our filters as we begin to move on. And because these are events and not our entire life, and as we begin to grow up, this becomes what we call unconscious. You know, we don't remember so much of what happened in our childhood. In fact, we don't remember what happened 12 days back. So if I asked you, what did you do between 4 and 4:30, 66 days back?
I have
You
no
know,
idea.
you'll have to track so many things to be able to try and get a sense of that. I'm still talking about hundreds. I'm still talking about thousands of days back, you know,
Yeah.
when we were children, when we had no conscious understanding of so much that was happening in our lives. So yeah, it's interesting how we all really defined by our beliefs, you know, and inherent states of, you know. So if you look at the times that we may feel powerless, or the times that we may feel helpless, you know, some situation helplessness can come in. There are situations where worthlessness can come in. Imposter syndrome being one of those that probably borders on all of this. And there could be times in extreme situations where even a sense of hopelessness can come in, which could be extremely debilitating, you know. And but these ideas of these emotions or these states of helpless, worthless, hopeless are all happening within us as a result of beliefs formed within us below the age of 7.
I mean, we've got these beliefs. So I guess one of the first things you said when we started off was awareness.
Mm.
To actually be aware of the fact that I am feeling um, insecure or imposter or hopeless. Once I've identified the fact that, okay, this is a situation that I'm faced with, the emotion that I'm feeling is hopelessness or the fact that I'm feeling that I can't do anything. Is there a way to break this belief?
Yes, there is. And again, having said that, our beliefs also, it's also important to understand that our beliefs also, when when we say it comes from experience, it's also important to understand that a lot of these experiences could or would have been traumatic. Painful events of our life will also be underneath, you know, would also be at the root of us forming beliefs about ourselves. So yes, that's one aspect of it. So, and the reason I bring that up is because if we look at how can we come out of it, you know, the way to break a limiting belief or the way to be able to transform a limiting belief is to be able to have the opportunity to identify where it came first, or to be able to identify where did I pick up this belief about myself, or where did I form this belief about myself? What is that experience? Where and when did it happen? And to have an idea of that, to be able to become aware of that, and to be able to go back to that experience in the mind, of course,
Right.
where that belief was formed. The identification of that is critical. You know, when is the earliest time I felt that? When is the earliest time I felt that fear? When is the earliest time I felt that helplessness? When is the earliest time I felt a sense of not being being worthless and not being worthy? And to be able to identify that, and then to be able to have a mechanism in place to be able to work through that. And when you're looking at working through that, what you're looking at is upgrading your map of yourself, or upgrading your map up your map of your reality. So that in situations as you move on in life, so that in those situations, when the same triggers come up, instead of it triggering the old map or the old beliefs, we have now the opportunity of these triggers or the same triggers triggering new beliefs and a new map of reality so that we have more option and more choice in situations.
But I think what for me is empowering to hear is the fact that, we all have mental maps. These are all mental maps that have been created by our realities, our circumstances, our situations. But it is possible to sort of first be aware of where you're at in life and then actually go back and reconfigure it to a newer reality, or a reality that you might be that might be more conducive for you, or that you want to live your life in per se.
Of course, it all starts with, if you think about it, it all starts with when you look at awareness and you're looking at even identifying a limiting belief, and you're looking at this whole area of uh, working with those aspects of yourself. It becomes important to understand that it's always in service of something that you want, you know. And so what really happens is we have one aspect of wanting to change or be part of some change process is often when we are going through something, an experience or a situation or a circumstance where we are not feeling uh, optimum in many ways, and this could be states of anxiety. For some people, it could be state of depression. And for some people, it could be fears. For some people, it could be unwanted thoughts or recurring thoughts, behaviors. And the whole idea of becoming aware of what really it is that I want in different areas of my life is something that is integral to any change work, and integral to why I would even identify or work through a limiting belief. You know, so if I know what I want in, say, in a relationship, and I know there's a belief that I hold about myself, then which limits me from being my best in a relationship, not just being codependent, or not just being someone who continuously blames, or not just being someone who is so insecure that it sort of comes again and again in the way we relate to people. So the whole idea of identifying that is one aspect, yet it's really in the service of being aware of what we want in a relationship, what's important to me in a relationship, how I want to be in a relationship. And that's where this becomes even more meaningful. The whole structure is meaningful in the service of something that I want.
How do you define what you want? Because often it's scary to say कि what do you want? अच्छा मेरे को ये चाहिए, लेकिन what if कल मेरे को कुछ और चाहिए होएगा? What if it's too much? What if it's too little? So it's a scary thing to even talk about or write down what you want a lot of times.
We are aware of what we don't want many times. I don't want accidents. I don't want to be nervous or scared when I'm on stage presenting. The biggest fear statistically is now recognized as the fear of public speaking. So when you ask somebody who's going to be able to, or they're going to be in a situation where they need to do that, which is by and large not just people in crowds, but could also be in an event when you're just sitting with one more person, the fear of public speaking can come right up. And when you ask people, okay, and that what's happening here and what is it that you want? And by and large, the response that one gets, and it's very natural for a person to turn around and say, oh, what I don't want is to be scared.
Right.
What I don't want is to be, is to feel paralyzed when I'm in a group or when I'm addressing a group, or when I'm giving an interview, or when I'm sitting with authority figures, or when I'm presenting my proposal. And the focus is largely on what we don't want. Take anything that you said. You made three statements of what you don't want. One of them is I don't want accidents. And if you just close your eyes and just bring that thought to your mind in terms of I don't want that. I don't want accidents.
I
And just
just saw
become aware of the image or what comes up for you when you say that.
an accident.
Perfectly well.
White car hitting a
Amazing.
multi-lane highway.
Amazing. And that's also the power of injunction, which is a statement like that was made 20 minutes back. somebody described an accident which had just this content. Unconsciously, you picked it up. You didn't consciously choose to pick up that statement and make it part of your reality. But the minute you close your eyes and you think of this word, I don't want, what comes up is some experience that you just had a little while back, even though you didn't consciously choose to have it. And that's how the unconscious is constantly absorbing and it just becomes a part of our reality. Now, having said that, when you say I don't want, the image that comes up is of what you don't want.
Right.
The minute you have a visual or an image inside, it will trigger feelings associated to that image. So if I'm thinking about something that I don't want, say two cars in an accident, it's possible my brain can go back to my map or what that means. And sometimes it may even touch an experience that I had, which is one of an accident. And if it was on the road and if it was traumatic or painful, I can begin to experience that pain even now. I can experience that, whatever emotions were attached to that event.
My heart fell when
Yeah,
I
when
thought
that
of the
image,
accident, right?
correct, correct. When you thought of that, you had a physiological response to that image. And that then generates a behavior, inward or outward. And that could be in the form of how you act or don't act. It could be in the form of what you do or you don't do. So again, here what becomes important is, when we look at what we want, are we focusing on what we don't want?
Right.
And to be able to bring our awareness to, so for you, it would just be, okay, if you don't want that, if you don't want to be, say, scared when you're talking to people in a group, what is it that you want instead?
I want to talk confidently. So I want to visualize maybe people clapping
Yeah,
or getting a standing ovation after I speak.
brilliant. Is that something that's possible to have an experience? You speaking confidently and having the experience of people applauding and you feeling good about yourself. Is it something that can happen in experience?
Yes.
Absolutely. And like that's another aspect of when I'm identifying or when I'm thinking about what I want, I'm also bringing up something that's possible in experience in the future. I have a direction. I could even have a destination, but that's what this question would primarily do. Brings me into the present. The minute bring my awareness to what I want, it has this beautiful quality of bringing me into the moment, you know, bringing me right here. And it's oriented not only into the present, but it's primarily oriented towards the future. And that's when I get a sense of an experience that I could have and how I could build on that experience and how that's meaningful for me or what is valuable to me about that experience. And it then motivates me to go after what it is that I want. Then it's interesting, if I have a block of not being worthy and I'm able to transform that, then it frees me inside to go after what it is that I want. And then that motivation is sort of intrinsic, taking me towards creating that in my future without any limiting belief blocking me. So that's how it becomes a beautiful link. And again, going back to when I say I don't want, that's again two things there. One is in experience, I cannot have what I don't want. So when you talk about, I don't want to be scared of people judging me when I'm speaking in public or when I'm speaking on stage. In experience, I cannot have that.
You can't experience it.
I
The
cannot
minute you
have that.
say don't,
The minute I
you
say,
can't not
I can,
experience.
yeah, yeah. And first, in experience, one, that is not a possibility. I can't create that in experience. What I can create in experience is, like you rightly said, I want to feel confident. And I want to have the ability to be able to be that person who's also able to bring people on their feet and applaud. That is an experience you can create. Not being scared on stage is not an experience you can have. And also the other aspect that is important here to understand is the minute you say I don't want, for my brain, that word don't does not exist.
It doesn't
It
exist.
doesn't exist. So, and that's what I really mean when I say an experience, I can't have it. So when you said I don't want to have an accident or think about an accident, the brain doesn't understand that. It doesn't process that word don't. So it deletes it entirely. And what you see is everything that follows that word. So if I say to you and to everybody in this room, if I just say, and for everyone who's hearing and seeing, it'd be a beautiful experiment actually. If I was to say, don't think of a pink elephant, you know, and just become aware of what image comes to your mind.
Yeah.
For you, what came up?
Pink elephant.
Just the way it is. And even though I said, if you pay attention to, if you just bring awareness to what I said, and it was, don't think of a pink elephant. So what happened to that word don't? The brain doesn't process it. It's just not there. Now I can go on and I can ask you. I say, Divya, have you ever seen one? Have you ever seen a pink elephant? And then I can turn around and say, has God made any? Do they even exist? And to your logical mind, conscious mind, the answers are no, God's not made any, Amit. I haven't even seen one, none of them, and they don't even exist. Yet, the unconscious mind showed me a pink elephant.
I mean, to double down on this, it's not just important to state what you want. It's important to have a want that is positive, that is something that is in your control, um, that is also possible. Because if we set unrealistic expectations,
Correct.
or also expectations or situations where we are giving other people or other situations uh, control of our success or failure,
Correct.
that also is, I will make an Instagram reel and it should hit 3 million followers.
Mm.
It's going to depend at some level on the Instagram algorithm.
Yeah.
So maybe I can create, my want can be that I will consistently create 30 reels or 20 reels with XYZ thought of great quality, of quality that I appreciate.
Correct.
But अगर मैं outcome पे उसको index करूँगी, then that want doesn't work
Yeah. And
essentially.
even if you want to put it, it's okay. Sometimes you put a figure to it, but we need to keep in our mind that if I say 3 million users or subscribers, as long as that outcome doesn't control me,
Okay,
as long as it's not rigid,
okay,
and as long as I'm aware that I can't control it, which means I, again, there, when you bring up this idea of I do what I can do, to reach 3 million, why three? Why not five? In that sense, why should I limit the outcome at all?
right,
I can have a sense of, okay, it'll be nice if this is going to be subscribed or seen by 3 million people. And if it's four or five, well and good, so my effort, then my focus is on what I'm doing. My focus is on how I can make that happen. Yet I'm not controlled by that outcome, because that outcome of whether it's going to be three or not three is not something that is in my hands. So the whole idea of, can I have an outcome? You know, if you think about it, that whole aspect of uh, you set an outcome, which is what the Gita is all about, but you're not attached to it.
right.
What you can do is, at best, do your karma, is
Okay,
what this aspect is all about. I can set my outcome. I can even put a number to it. Yet when I say I'm not attached to that outcome, is because I can't control it.
right,
Then my focus is on what I can do to move towards that.
right.
And naturally, that then empowers me to keep my focus on my internal resources, on my abilities, my skills, and creating what it is that I want to create out there.
Amit, you also spoke about verbal and physical, right? So a lot of our communication, while a certain amount is verbal,
Hmm.
a huge amount is physical, how we communicate, etc. Uh, does physical, like how you hold up yourself, how you're sitting, can you use physical actions, activity, exercise to create a sense of confidence, or improve your emotions or modulate them? Like, can that create a sense of confidence?
Hmm.
And can we use our body to exude that?
Certainly you can. Certainly you can. And one way of doing it is sometimes, you model, you see somebody or you think of somebody and you think of the posture that they have. And that posture for you is one of confidence. And in your mind, in fantasy, you can sort of step into, it's a process where you can begin to sort of model that behavior. You start to imitate it a little. You start to sort of play around with that and see what happens to you. Eventually, what happens is, if you model well enough, you are able to pick up the internal structure or whatever that external manifestation is all about.
Interesting.
Yes. And even it doesn't necessarily have to be someone out there. If you just think about a time when you have the experience of what you want now or in the future, and you just, okay, the time in my past where, say, you're walking into, same example of an interview, you're walking into an interview, and if I was to ask you, what is it that you want when you win that interview? And one aspect of that is what you want, and then ask you, how do you want to be able to sort of fulfill that? And you turn around and tell me, okay, I mean, some of the internal qualities that if I have in that time, if I have in that interview would really enable me, would really help me. It could be courage, can be humor, could be confidence, could be belief in myself, trust in what I know, all of that. And if you only to look back at a time in your past when you already have this, any experience of the past where these qualities were available to you, then through a process with NLP, you're able to sort of get a sense of that in your body now.
Wow.
Posture, voice, words, a complete sense of that at every level. And then to be able to get a sense of how that comes alive in that future situation. And then there's an entire aspect of how you can anchor the future to how you're experiencing yourself now and what it is that you want in the future. So that entire design is available. It's possible to do that. Yeah.
We all face, I mean, and I guess especially one of the things that we face a lot is, we go through different emotions. One of the primary emotions that is also something that causes the most harm is anger. Ki gussa aa gaya. And, I think there'll be circumstances, whether at work, whether at life, where you get super angry. How do you control the anger, and how do you not let this emotion overtake you, or at least do things that you then later regret?
Correct.
Because this is the last ki gussa, what should I do ki gussa nahi aaye, and if I'm angry, how do I control it?
Okay, let's do something here. Okay, I'm going to ask you to call me an idiot.
Okay.
Okay, so you're going to just use that word, idiot, and naturally you're going to aim it towards me.
I can't do that.
Yeah.
Okay, fine. Idiot.
Okay, now I see you and I hear that word, but the volume is really low and the part smile, part serious. When I see it coming with a smile, ye dil mange more, you know. So the whole idea is when you say it now, just with a lot of aggression, a lot of force, as if you really mean it, and just that one word. Okay,
Idiot.
okay. Now I see you. And that's the visual input. Okay, I see your face, I see the expression, I see your eyes, I see the body. That 53%, 51% of communication happening there. I hear your voice. And in your voice, I pick up the volume. I pick up the tone. Okay, 93% that. And then the word idiot. I know in my map it's negative. Now that 100% communication goes into me. Now when that goes in, I can turn around and begin to process that. I'm thinking, oh shit, man, you know. And she called me an idiot. And the last time she called someone an idiot, that person was in trouble. Or I can process differently. I can just think, how dare she call me an idiot? She called me here. She said, let's have a conversation. And I'm doing my best. I may not be perfect. I may not be the best guest she's ever had. And naturally, I am nervous. I don't do this all the time. Yet, no empathy, no compassion, no togetherness, no equality. Just idiot like that, so loud, insulting. Now, when I go through all of that in my mind, what emotion comes up?
Anger.
Naturally, anger. Okay. Now, I don't want to process like that. I want to process, let me look at it a little differently. Okay, I start to think like that. Damn, I can think she's like a boss. I walked into this room, I saw the magazine, I see her all over the place, and she's the senior person, leader. And last time she called in this organization, last time she called someone an idiot, I believe that person was asked to leave. Shit. Today she's calling me an idiot. Now, when I start to think like that, what emotion comes up?
Fear.
Fear. Perfectly well. Okay, I don't want to process like that. I can process differently. I can just turn around and think, Divya hai na. She's like a buddy now. Yeah. We may have just recently met, but some people you meet recently also, you meet, but somehow you just connect at different levels. You can talk, you can share. You don't have to have a facade. You can just be yourself. Arey, she's like a buddy only, na. Like chadi buddies nahi hota. Idiot bolo, donkey bolo, monkey bolo, just shows her affection and love only. Correct? No, like that. I can think. If I process like that, what comes up?
Acceptance.
Acceptance, easiness. Correct? Now the question is, who created these feelings in me? Who generated these feelings in me?
You did.
I did. I can turn around and say, she made me feel like that. Doesn't work like that. That person did, therefore I'm feeling anger, sadness, fear, hate, disgust. No. The way I process that word, It can generate anger, it can generate fear, it can generate easiness or cheerfulness, it can generate hundreds of other things. You cannot generate any emotion in me. I generate my own emotions within myself. And again, here it becomes important to understand where is this happening from? It's happening from my programs. It could be that I'm programmed so much in life with anger. And no matter what happens, I just go to that default. The program that it automatically brings up, that word, that expression, that voice, is just anger. How dare she? How the bloody hell? I'll show her. Okay. Or I could be programmed into fear. No matter what happens, my first default or my first response internally is, oh shit, I'm in trouble. I've had it. Now what do I do? How do I keep myself safe? I can start to feel insecure. Or I can be like, some people are like that. No matter what you tell them, no matter what you do, they have chale dekhenge, ab baad mein dekhenge. You tell them, this. How do we do it? How do we do it? Deadline. Deadline hai yaar, not the end of the world. Kar lenge, dekh lenge. They're in that state of their program is one of ease. That comes up again and again for them. That's their go-to program to begin with. Now, again, here, the whole idea is I generate based on my map, based on my program, I generate my response. Having said that, anger is I hear a lot of people turning around and say, okay, anger is, so if I was more often than not, when I ask people, what's your idea of anger? Do you think it's positive? Do you think it's negative? Do you think it's good? Do you think it's bad? And I mostly always have a response of something in the lines of not positive, something negative, something bad. But the understanding of anger is actually different. Anger is always behind anger, there's a want.
Okay.
So if anybody was to just look at one experience of their life where they had anger and just focus on that experience and just ask themselves, that churning begins in the body. There's that energy churning starts just before the anger is building up. And when that churning happens, if I just learn to ask myself one question, which is, what do I want?
Right.
You have a response to what this anger, what this feeling is actually coming up for. Anger is always a want. So if I'm on the road, somebody cuts my car, I can step out of the car and I can get into a fight. I can get into a brawl. All road rage is about that. And at the end of that, there's a consequence. If it is negative, then it is negative, which is what we see more often than not. You rarely hear of a situation where road rage happened and two people parted as friends. You always see the worst coming out of that. And in these situations, if we just ask ourselves, okay, somebody cut my car, if I just ask myself, okay, at that time the churning can happen, the anger can happen, I can come out, abuse, scream, shout, hit. And later you ask me, okay, Amit, what happened? And I say, oh, all this damn thing happened. And you ask me then I say, okay, then we fought. And then you say, eventually, I say, eventually the cops are now have registered a case and all of this has happened. If you just ask me at that time, okay, in that moment when this person cut your car, anger came. I say, yeah, anger came. And then if you ask me in that moment, if you just ask yourself, what do you want? And if I was to reflect on that now, probably my mind would go to what is it that I wanted in that time when somebody cut me on the road?
Just wanted to get home
I
in
just,
time for
yeah,
dinner
yeah,
and
and just
not
be
miss
safe, right?
and just be safe
Yeah,
and
be home for dinner, be with the family, just be safe and not have someone, that sense of. And then if I was to ask you that, hey, did you get that? That feeling of safety and that feeling of protected, did that come from the experience? And you say, no, to the contrary, it's now with the cops and it's now in a
I'm
major,
right.
it's now a
It's now,
different
yeah,
situation right now.
right.
And one of us is hurt and one of us is hit. In some places, even worse. And even here, so anger is not something we need to subdue. Anger is not something that's negative. It's an energy. It's just energy. How I use that energy is either positive or negative. It's like electricity, right?
What about stress, Amit? Like that's been in the news a lot. We had a 26-year-old who died of stress. Abhi, there was another one in Lucknow. What is stress as an emotion? Is like, what is that energy form? And stress, how can we deal with it?
For me, stress, if I was to just put a very general, understandable perspective to it, for me, stress is a no choice situation. When I don't have, or when I don't look at choices, I'm going to get stressed. The minute I have choice, it's like if I'm traveling from point A to point B, I'm coming from Gurgaon to my podcast today, and I'm on the highway. I put on my GPS and it shows me 1 or 10 minutes, and it seems I'm going to be late for this appointment. Naturally, my body goes into a stress response. It's a fight or flight response. I can go into that mode. let me shift a little and see if I have options, I have choices. What are my options? What are my choices? I begin to notice I could come through MG Road. I discover that that could be 20 minutes shorter to where I am right now. And in the worst case scenario, I also know I can postpone, I can request a delay of time. You know, I have that choice. I can make a call well in time and I can ask the organizer, look, I was scheduled at X. I am stuck. Can we push to Y? Or something else. The minute I begin to look at my options and my choices, uh, I then start to focus on what I can do to go after what I want. And even that becomes important. So the minute I'm looking at, I'm experiencing stress, it becomes important for me to again pause there and ask myself, what is it that I want? So I want to be on time for what purpose? You know, because of XYZ. Okay, now what are my options? What are my choices? They did an experiment, a research on stress.
Yeah.
And so they had these two groups of people. They put the first group in a room, and they told this group that in this room they would have them. There would be very high intensity lights, extreme high intensity lights, and they told this group that when that happens, there are these posters and paintings on the wall. Behind these paintings, they're knobs. So if you want, you can reduce the intensity by reducing it through the knob. That knob can control the intensity of the light. Now these people were put into that room, and the intensity of light was put. Now these people, when they recorded the parameters before and after, there was hardly any change because they knew they had an option. They knew they had a choice. They could do something about this.
They could reduce
And
the
they could
light
reduce the
if they
light,
so
and they had an
wanted to.
option. They had a choice. Then they brought the second group in, exactly the same stimuli, high intensity lights, yet no choice offered. This option of this aspect of switch behind the paintings not mentioned.
Wow.
And they looked at the parameters before and after. And when they looked at the parameters after, all parameters were elevated. Heart rate elevated, pulse rate elevated, BP elevated. A lot of people went through hell because of that. Then they said, okay, let's do another experiment. This time they did it with high intensity, with high intensity volume, decibel, very high decibel sound. And they found similar results. Then they discovered stress on the system is a no choice situation. When you give the system a choice, when you give the system an option, and we are allowed to work through those options and choices, by and large, we handle stress.
What happens when you don't have a choice, right? So what if ki mere ko, I have to wake up in the morning and I have to take, XYZ person to the hospital.
Mm,
I have an exam.
mm.
What happens in circumstances where you have to do something and there's no choice?
From the way I see it, we always have a choice. I don't have to do anything. There are consequences. I become aware of it. Secondly, again, can we reframe that word?
Okay.
Have to. So if I was to say to you, just for the purpose of experiment, uh, think of something that you often say to yourself, which is a have to. And you don't have to share the content with me or anybody who's listening. And when you think you have something that is often for you, I have to, then you just close your eyes. Say that I have to do this. For me, sometimes it's I have to wake up at 5 and exercise. I have to. And keep your focus on that word have to. And when you do, just notice what happens internally. What's your response to that word? And then when you have a sense of that, just shift one word, have to want. I want to. Same content. I want to wake up in the morning, exercise, or I want to do that. And just focus on that word want and just notice what happens internally to your experience.
Body calms down. I think my heart expands when I
Correct.
say want, and it
Correct.
contracts when I say
And even here, it's important to understand some words are have to, should, must. Now, some of these words are pressure words. When I say it internally, when I have that kind of dialogue with myself, I have to do this. And for some of us, there are a lot of shoulds. I should always be respectful. I should be on time. If it's important for me to be on time, I just need to change that and say, I want
I
to be
want to
on
be on
time.
time.
Yeah. If that's important, I should be good to people. I have to be good to people.
Right.
I have to put my papers, I have to complete all my tasks. I should complete all my tasks and make my boss happy. If these things are inherently something you want. You want that relationship with your boss. If time is a value that you inherently value, whether your boss is there in work, anybody else there at work or not, but I value time. So I'm there on time. It's not for you, not for anybody else. It's because this is inherently important to me in the way I am. Relationships are important to me to make the other person happy and to have a good relationship and to make myself happy is what I want. Then I don't have to focus on should, have to, must. Those are pressure words. They always put pressure. And again, the reason they put pressure is when you notice something happen when you said I have to is because no choice. The minute you convert that have to wake up at my 5, I'm not giving myself a choice. The minute you say I want to do something, there's an element of choice. It's something that I'm intrinsically moving towards. It's something that I want
And
so I can
I
go.
chose to
I'm
do
choosing to do this. It's something that I want. It's something that's valuable to me, something that I inherently want as a part of my life.
it.
And again here, everybody has to be part of this, Devi. I'm not living in the full, I'm certainly not saying it's just this one element, but for me it's a cultural shift. The organizations need to understand that work life balance
Is
is
important.
something that people want. It shouldn't be something that they have to struggle to have in their life.
Yeah. And I will talk from experience. I mean that it's a simple question, what do I want? But it's scary. Matlab, I think you're scared to actually write down what you
Mm,
want, what your purpose is.
mm.
But I feel once you actually put it to pen and paper,
Right.
it actually becomes much easier, more real. And
Correct.
जब आप tangibly देख सकते हो, then you realize it's
Correct.
not so hard.
Correct.
When you say I want to be happy, it's very difficult to quantify.
Mm,
But when you say, I want to shoot 2 podcasts, or I want to play with my
mm,
kids, or I
mm.
want to eat uh, a great pizza,
Correct.
and that for me is happiness.
As
It's
for yeah.
suddenly more achievable
Yes.
than just this, you know, random want. So if I can say, okay, I want to be happy with, great a great burger.
Mm,
So
mm.
it's like ordering on Zomato. You have your burger and you've actually experienced happiness,
Beautiful.
versus
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
feeling जब आप when you're not articulating,
Mm,
and that might be because हमें पता नहीं है, awareness नहीं है,
mm.
तो हम ये अपने knots में ज़्यादा छुपे रहते हैं.
Correct.
So
Because firstly, because the focus is on what we don't want.
exactly,
And secondly, what I hear you say is, when we identify our wants, can we also chunk it down
yeah.
into smaller successes, you know? And those smaller successes is what does the magic, because when I achieve something, it could be a small success. Like you said, it could be just a very little action. When I do that and I pay attention to that success, then dopamine, serotonin, all the four chemicals the example that you gave, and each of the examples that you said would involve the chemistry of all the four feel
Right,
good chemicals:
right.
dopamine, serotonin, endorphins, oxytocin, everything. It's everything comes into play. Just that one small success, which could be linked to what is it that I want.
Think about what you want, and then I think break it down
Break it down
into
into
smaller, achievable things,
achievable, doable
doable, or
action
just
steps.
keep at
Yeah,
it
and then
again and
use
again.
the energy of anger and all your inner resources to go after that want, and let that be a part of your orientation. Does it mean I'll always get what I want? No. Yet, if my focus is on what I want, the larger picture, that vision, you know, if my focus is on that, then the little failures, so-called failures, also transform into feedback. I can look at it like, I didn't get what I wanted because this is feedback. Now, okay, it doesn't matter. Now, what can I learn from this? How can I go after? Because my vision is on my larger goal. What it is that I truly truly want.
I mean, a lot of times we'll have emotions like anxiety,
Mm,
कुछ करने वाले like uh, th- you'll feel anxious, or a migraine, or certain these things. I've heard that there's certain NLP techniques that can help you deal with emotions, and give you very quick results.
correct.
Is there any such NLP techniques that you could maybe tell us or walk us through for an emotion we might be feeling, of maybe anxiety or fear or
Well, now one immediate process that comes to my mind, and this is like a first aid. If there's any discomfort coming up for anybody in the moment, one good thing to do at that time is to get them to just stand up
okay?
and look up. You can just throw their arms up and just look up and maybe find if they're in a room, they can find a spot on the wall and just stay in
Hands
the
up.
visual, hands up, and just stay in the visual mode. So if they're looking at a spot, they can carry on looking at it, spend some time there, notice the colors, the texture, something around that spot. And again, if the mind goes on different thoughts, etc., just bring your focus back on the visual and just stay in the visual for about 30 seconds, 45 seconds, something like that, short period of time. And then ask them to come back, bring their head back, and they'll notice that the discomfort in the body would have
Good.
greatly reduced or not even be there.
Wow.
It's just a quick first aid. Now, what happens here is no magic actually, but it's our grandmoms knew this. So when a child fell down, hurt their knee or hurt themselves, the grandmother would pick up the baby and just say, ऊपर देखो, la da 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 da, वो देखो
Yeah,
चिड़िया
yeah,
चिड़िया
yeah, yeah,
चिड़िया,
yeah, yeah,
like that.
yeah, yeah.
वो
Chidiya
देखो
dekho.
चिड़िया,
Oh God, yeah.
the kid looks up,
Yeah.
and the kid is noticing this. In the meantime, she'll dab a little Dettol, whatever she needs to do. Okay, we think that it's just distraction. Yet internally, what is really happening is they put the child into the visual mode. Now the child is in the visual mode. So when you're looking at a spot on the ceiling or the baby is looking up on the chidia, when my brain goes into the visual mode, I'm no longer in the kinesthetic, the feeling mode. So if I'm in the visual, I'm out of the feeling, which means I'm
Beautiful.
out of the discomfort. So as a quick first aid, this can work really well. And then, of course, we don't leave it at that. And then there's an opportunity to look into, okay, what caused the discomfort? What can we do about it? And so many tools then, so many processes to help people integrate wherever that discomfort is coming from, and then be able to use tools and methods to be able to deal with similar situations in the future. And those opportunity to do that is there. There's lots of method to be able to have that.
Thank you. I mean,
Yeah.
thank you so much. I think this has been absolutely fascinating to really understand the power of the mind, how it dictates us. But really, I think for me, what's the most empowering is the fact that it's actually something we can manage, we can control, and the kind of lives we want to lead and the reality we want is ultimately in our hands. And we just need to know how to use it. And I think from awareness to knowledge, thank you so much for sharing this
Thank you
journey
very
with us.
much for giving me this opportunity. And you're absolutely right. End of the day, uh, the response is always something I can choose. I may not be able to control what's happening out there. It's like the rain. I can't change that. But I can either sit in my room and crib about it. I can accuse God, accuse myself for always being in a situation and blame the stimulus, the rain, for whatever happening. Yet, what you bring up right now is since I can control my response, I need to remember umbrella, carrying an umbrella or a raincoat, that's my choice. And when I have that choice, I can handle the rain in the way I want to. Certainly, that's true. Thank
Beautiful.
you very much for having me and giving me an opportunity to talk about something that I love.
Thank you.
And I'm really honored to be here.
Excited. No, you've really helped me and honestly grateful.
Thank you. Thank you very much.